I've been a clinical psychologist for over 20 years, and I thought I'd seen every shade of human struggle walk through my door. But the day Liam Harper sat across from me, looked me straight in the eye and said, "Dr. Moore, I have a double life, and I don't know which one is real anymore." I knew this wasn't just another case about infidelity or midlife crisis. This was about a man who had been running so fast toward every finish line society placed in front of him that he never stopped to ask if he was even running in the right direction. My name is Dr. Evelyn Moore. I'm a clinical psychologist here in Portland, and for the past 2 decades, I've held space for people's most guarded truths. My office is a quiet refuge, just off a tree-lined street, with soft lighting and 2 deep leather chairs that face each other with nothing but honesty between them. That Thursday afternoon in late September, when Liam first came in, the light was filtering through the blinds in these golden stripes across the floor, and I remember thinking how ironic it was that everything looked so peaceful when the man sitting in front of me was clearly falling apart. Liam was 42, though he looked both older and younger at the same time. He had that polished executive appearance, expensive watch, tailored navy suit, hair perfectly styled with just enough gray at the temples to look distinguished. But his hands were shaking slightly as he set down his leather briefcase, and when he finally sat down, he perched on the edge of the chair like he might need to run at any moment. He kept adjusting his wedding ring, spinning it around his finger in this compulsive way that told me everything before he even spoke. His eyes were red-rimmed, not from crying exactly, but from the kind of exhaustion that comes from not sleeping for weeks, because your own thoughts won't leave you alone. He started talking before I even finished my usual opening. I'm married, 15 years, 3 kids, 10, 12, and 14. I have a good job, VP of marketing at a tech firm downtown. We have the house in West Lynn, the cars, the vacations. On paper, I have everything. He paused, and his voice dropped to almost a whisper. But I think I've been lying to everyone, including myself, for my entire adult life. I let the silence sit for a moment, watching him. "What makes you feel like you've been lying, Liam?" He laughed, but it was this bitter, hollow sound. Because 3 weeks ago, I kissed a man, a colleague, and for the first time in I don't know how many years, I felt like I was actually present in my own life, not performing it, not checking it off a list, actually living it. That's when I knew we were going much deeper than he even realized yet. This wasn't just about sexual orientation, though that was certainly part of it. This was about a man who had built an entire existence around external measurements of success, and was only now, at 42, starting to wonder if any of it was actually his. Over the next few sessions, Liam unfolded his story like someone showing me a map of a journey he never wanted to take but couldn't stop following. He grew up in an upper-middle-class family in Connecticut, the younger of 2 sons. His older brother had died in a car accident when Liam was 16, and after that, he became the sole focus of his parents' expectations and anxieties. His father, a successful attorney, had very specific ideas about what a man's life should look like, and he had this habit of measuring everything against Liam's cousin Jonathan. Jonathan got into Yale at 17. Jonathan made partner before 30. Jonathan had 2 kids by your age. Liam, what are you waiting for? I spent my entire 20s trying to catch up to Jonathan, Liam told me during our 3rd session, and I could hear the exhaustion in his voice. I dated women because that's what you did. I proposed to Sarah when I was 27 because my dad kept making comments about me being almost 30 and still not settled down. We got married 6 months later. First kid came 2 years after that, right on schedule. Then the second, then the third. Every promotion, every bonus, every milestone, I'd call my dad and he'd say, "Good, you're finally catching up." Catching up to what? To whom? I don't even know anymore. I leaned forward slightly. "Liam, when you say you were running on a schedule, whose schedule was it really?" He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something crack in that polished exterior. I don't know. That's the terrifying part. I don't know if I ever wanted any of this, or if I just wanted to stop feeling like I was behind. That's when I started to see the real architecture of his suffering. Liam had turned his entire life into a checklist, a race against an invisible clock that was always telling him he wasn't enough, wasn't there yet, was wasting time. And the saddest part was that even his doubts about his sexuality had become another item on that toxic timeline. "I'm 42, he said, voice breaking. "If I'd figured this out at 25, maybe I could have lived a different life. But now, I've got 3 kids who call me dad, a wife who doesn't deserve this, a career I built. I'm too late. I've already wasted the best years of my life living the wrong one, and now there's no time left to start over. I could feel the weight of that belief pressing down on him, suffocating him. Liam, you're talking about your life like it's a project with a deadline, but what if there is no deadline? What if the only clock that matters is the one inside you that's finally trying to tell you the truth? He shook his head, tears finally spilling over. You don't understand. Every day I wake up and look at Sarah, and she's a good person. She loves me. The kids are happy. And I think, how selfish am I? How absolutely selfish to blow up their entire lives because I'm confused, because I can't figure out who I am. Other people have doubts and they just push through. They don't destroy everything. Is that what your father would say? I asked quietly. His face went pale. That's exactly what he'd say. During our 5th session, something shifted. Liam came in looking different, more hollow somehow, like he'd lost weight he didn't have to lose. He sat down and immediately said, I told Sarah I kissed someone. Not that it was a man, just that I'd kissed someone and that I was confused and needed space to think. How did she respond? She asked me if I loved her, and I said yes, because I do, just not the way she needs me to. And then she said something that broke me. She said, Liam, you've always been somewhere else. Even when you're here, you're not here. I just thought it was work. I thought if I was patient enough, you'd finally arrive. And I realized she's been waiting for me the same way I've been waiting to feel like my life finally started. I felt that land between us. What do you mean, waiting for your life to start? He looked up at the ceiling, trying to keep more tears from falling. It's like I've spent 42 years thinking, okay, once I get this degree, then I'll feel like an adult. Once I get married, then I'll feel settled. Once I have kids, then I'll feel purposeful. Once I make VP, then I'll feel successful. And none of it ever worked. I keep waiting to feel like I've arrived, like I've finally made it to the life I'm supposed to be living. But I just feel more and more like I'm watching someone else's life through a window. That's when I knew we'd reached the core. Liam, what if you've been running toward the wrong finish line this entire time? What if the reason you never feel like you've arrived is because you're trying to arrive at someone else's destination? The silence that followed was heavy and long. Finally, he spoke, and his voice was so quiet I almost didn't hear him. 3 months ago, before any of this happened, I was scrolling through social media at like 2 a.m. because I couldn't sleep, and I saw this guy I went to college with. We were in the same major, started at the same place. He just posted about coming out at 45, introducing his partner, talking about finally living authentically, and instead of feeling happy for him, I felt this rage, this burning, jealous rage. Not because he was gay, but because he'd done it. He'd stopped running and just lived. And I kept scrolling, kept comparing, kept thinking about all the people who seemed to have figured it out already. And I was still here, still confused, still behind, still failing at being a person. I leaned forward. Liam, you just said something really important. You said you felt like you were failing at being a person, not failing at being straight or gay or a husband or a father. Failing at being a person. That's what this is really about, isn't it? You've turned your entire existence into a performance review, and you're always grading yourself against everyone else's timeline. He nodded, and the tears came harder now. I'm so tired, Dr. Moore. I'm so tired of keeping score. I'm tired of looking at other people's lives and feeling like I missed my exit. I'm tired of feeling like every year that passes is another year wasted, another year I can't get back. I don't even know what I want anymore because I've spent so long trying to want the right things at the right time. That's when the real work began. Over the following weeks, we started to untangle the difference between external pressure and internal truth. I had him start keeping a journal, but not about his sexuality, about moments when he felt present versus moments when he felt like he was performing. The patterns were striking. He felt present when he was hiking alone, when he was cooking late at night with music on, when he had real conversations with his oldest daughter about her dreams. He felt like he was performing during family dinners, during sex with his wife, during every single work meeting, during weekend barbecues with other couples. I've been performing being Liam Harper for so long that I don't know who I'd be if I stopped, he told me. Then maybe it's time to find out, I said. Not by blowing everything up, not by making massive decisions tomorrow, but by slowly, carefully, honestly starting to ask yourself what you actually
Entendo.
feel
Pode me
instead
contar
of
mais
what you
sobre
should
isso?
feel.
Sim,
The
é
turning
difícil
point
colocar
came
em
during our
palavras.
8th session.
Então,
Liam walked in and sat down with this different energy, less frantic, more resolved. I talked to the guy I kissed, Michael. We met for coffee, just to talk, to clear the air. And I told him everything, about Sarah, about the kids, about feeling like I'm losing my mind. And you know what he said? He said, "Liam, I came out at 38. I lost my marriage. My in-laws stopped talking to me. My parents didn't speak to me for 2 years. And yeah, it was awful. But I'm 41 now, and I'm finally not lying every single day. You're not too late. You're just scared you are." I watched Liam carefully. How did that feel to hear? Terrifying, relieving, like someone finally gave me permission to stop racing against a clock that doesn't even exist. He paused, took a breath. I'm not saying I know what I'm going to do. I'm not saying I'm leaving Sarah or coming out or any of that. But I'm saying I'm going to stop pretending I have it all figured out. I'm going to stop measuring my worth by whether I'm on schedule with everyone else's life. That's brave, Liam. It doesn't feel brave. It feels like I'm finally admitting I've been lost this whole time and just pretending I knew where I was going. We worked together for 6 more months. Liam didn't make any dramatic changes at first. He started going to therapy consistently. He had honest conversations with Sarah, including eventually telling her about Michael and about his questions regarding his sexuality. It was painful, messy, and there were no easy answers. Sarah was hurt, angry, confused, but she also said something that surprised both of them. She said, "I'd rather know the truth and figure out what comes next than spend another 10 years with someone who's only half here." They decided to separate, not immediately divorce, but to give each other space to figure out who they were outside of the life they'd built on autopilot. Liam moved into an apartment downtown, got a therapist who specialized in sexuality and identity, and started the slow, uncomfortable work of asking himself questions he'd spent 2 decades avoiding. The kids were hurt and confused, but Liam committed to being present with them in a way he never had before, not as the perfect dad checking off parenting milestones, but as a flawed human trying to do better. The last time I saw Liam, about 14 months after our first session, he looked different. Not lighter exactly, but more solid, more real. "I still don't have all the answers," he told me. "I'm dating, trying to figure out what I actually want versus what I think I should want. Some days I still feel like I'm 43 and starting from scratch while everyone else is miles ahead. But then I remember what you said. There is no race. There's just my life, happening right now, and I'm finally in it instead of watching it pass by." I smiled at him. "That's all any of us can do, Liam. Show up for our own lives, even when we don't have it figured out." As he left that day, I thought about how many people are living Liam's story in different versions. How many of us are running invisible races, measuring ourselves against timelines that were never ours to begin with, feeling like failures because we didn't hit milestones at the right of time, because someone else got there first, because we're not where we think we should be. We turn our lives into competitions we can never win because the finish line keeps moving, and we never stop to ask if we even want what's waiting there. Liam's story isn't about sexuality, not really. It's about what happens when you spend so long trying to be on time for someone else's version of your life that you forget to live your own. It's about the courage it takes to stop running, to stand still in your own truth, even when it's messy and uncertain and doesn't look like anyone else's journey. It's about understanding that there is no such thing as too late when it comes to becoming who you actually are. If this story touched something in you, if you've ever felt like you're running a race with no finish line or measuring your life against someone else's timeline, take a breath. You're not behind. You're not too late. You're exactly where you are, and that's the only place you can start from. If you want, share in the comments which part of this story resonated with you most. No need to identify yourself. And if you'd like to hear more stories from my practice, subscribe to the channel. But remember this, listening to stories can help you feel less alone, but it doesn't replace professional support. If you're struggling with questions about identity, relationships, or feeling lost in your own life, please reach out to a therapist you trust. You deserve that space to figure things out. Thank you, and see you next time.